Okay, we're continuing in Likutei Moharan, Torah Aleph, here by Siman Gil. L'kasha atzmo l'shorshei neshamos shel Yisrael tzarich lida makor kol haneshamos u'makor chiyusim. So just to recap, we said that a person was created in order to rule over Malachim, and there's a problem because the Malachim are jealous of us. When we come to rule over the Malachim, so they try to push us down. And like we saw in the story of Rav Amram, they tried to make him do averos, and also by us, they try to make us fall from our madriga, from our level of serving Hashem, and they try to bring us down in order that we shouldn't rule over them because they're jealous. So the Rebbe says that the way to save yourself from this is by holding on to the source, to the shorsh nishmei. The shorsh and the shamas of all Israel, to the root of all the souls of Israel. And we said that's the Bechina Kisei HaKavod, holding on to the Kisei HaKavod, that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to hold on to the Kisei HaKavod in order to save himself from the jealousy of the Malachim, because we said Moshe Rabbeinu at that, when he went up to Shemayim to get the Torah, he was afraid that the angels would maybe burn him up, like we learned before. So now the Rebbe is going to explain how exactly we do this, or one of the important things in holding on to the root of all of the souls of Israel, which sounds like a very abstract type of thing. One thing we mentioned before was Avos Yisrael, connecting yourself to all the Jewish people through loving every Jew is an important factor in this. And here we're going to explain another very important factor, which is necessary to attach yourself to the source of all the souls of the Jewish people. In order to attach yourself to all the root of all the Jewish people, you have to know the source of all the neshamos and the source of their life force. From the place where you have to know the place where every single neshama gets its life from. And the main thing is in this fact is to know the famous people of the generation. Since if a person can't actually attach himself to every single Jew, possibly because he doesn't know them, or you can't go around finding every Jew, or we don't obviously know their spiritual source of every single Jew. It's something that we can't. A normal person is very hard for them. So the main thing here is to attach yourself to all the Mefursamim, the leaders of the generation, the big rabbis of the generation, or the famous people of the generation. Because all the neshamas are divided underneath the leaders of the generation. Because each manhig hador, each leader of the generation of that generation, meaning if there are 10 leaders, so all the people of that generation are divided underneath these 10 leaders. So some are going to be appropriate, some are going to be designated or attached to or come from one of the leaders, and other people are going to come from a different leader. I mean, this is how it works in the souls in general. There's a hierarchy of souls. When Moshe Rabbeinu, when the Parsha of Yisro comes and tells Klal Yisrael, tells Moshe Rabbeinu that it's not kedai for him to stand in front of everybody and everyone should be asking questions. When there was a question in Klal Yisrael, everyone would come directly to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Yisro said that that wasn't the right way to do it. Instead, what you should do, he suggested, was to set up a hierarchy. Now, this hierarchy was a suggestion which Moshe Rabbeinu accepted, but it isn't just a physical hierarchy or a hierarchy of structure or law. There is an actual spiritual method, spiritual significance to this hierarchy. And just like in the way, in the Pashat, in the simple understanding of the Chumash, the soul, the people, the Jewish people were designated. Every 10 person was designated to a leader of 10s, and every 100 people were designated to a bigger leader of 100, and every 1,000 people had a ruler of 1,000 over him, and so on and so forth. so too that's how the neshamas actually work. There are small neshamas that are underneath, so to speak, a bigger neshama, and depending on how big the neshama is, that's how many neshamas that person has underneath. There are people that have neshamas of 1,000, and he would be fitting to rule over 1,000 people and to teach 1,000 people how to serve Hashem. Obviously, if this person was serving Hashem and doing mitzvahs and everything, it would be appropriate for him, according to his soul, to lead 1,000 people. And there are some people that are leaders of 100 or leaders of 10, and there are some people, obviously, that are leaders of all Klal Yisrael, that are fitting to lead all Klal Yisrael, like Moshe Rabbeinu. And there are also many others that were fitting and did lead Klal Yisrael single-handedly. These neshamas were obviously called all the neshamas. They were on top and ruled over all the neshamas. So here we see it also, even today, we have such a concept of leaders of the generation or famous people in the generation, and these famous rabbis, these famous people, have set numbers of neshamas underneath them. So since it's very hard for me to attach myself to every one of the detailed neshamas, the pratyastic neshamas, every specific neshama, he says the way to do it is to attach yourself to the leaders of the generation, who, in attaching yourself to their neshama, you'll automatically be attached to all the single neshamas, the particular neshamas. Because every manhigador, every leader of the generation, has a number of neshamas, a set number of neshamas that are underneath him and that are appropriate, meaning that are connected to his portion, that are his portion. And when you attach yourself to the Mefusamim, which is a lot easier because there are less of them, Pashtus, this is one reason. Since there are less of them, it's just easier to find 10 or 20 Mefusamim and attach yourself to them than it is to go around to every single Jew, hugging and kissing him, or connecting yourself to that person individually. There's a problem, the Rebbe says. However, you have to recognize these Mefusamim because there are some of them that are false, that are liars. And their leadership comes only through azus, only through the fact that they're very bold and they're very brazen, that they're able to stand up, and they do stand up in front of all of the people, even though they're not really fitting. As the rabbis say in Sanhedrin, that azus is malchus, is kingship without a crown, meaning that they're not fitting to rule. They take the leadership, they take the kingship, but they don't have the crown, they don't have the actual ability to rule. They're not appropriate for ruling. What it means is, you could have a person that's only a leader of, let's say, 10 neshamas, much smaller person, and he's very bold and brazen, not so idle, and he runs around and he gathers people and he makes people listen to him, and he pretends like he's a big tzaddik and a big rebbe, and he gets to have a big following. He could have 1,000 people following him, but really he's only a leader of 10. So how does this happen? This happens only through azus, through brazenness. Meaning it's not appropriate at all for him to be leading over all these people. He just takes these people with force, in a certain type of force, and he makes them follow him, or he entices them to follow him. And really, it's not appropriate for such a person to have some people follow him. That's meaning the person could have a small neshama of 10, and really has tons and tons of people following him, and he's just not appropriate for him. And there's another way to understand this. That's one way. And a similar way, but it could be two different approaches, is that it could be that the person really is a leader of 1,000, but maybe he's not really fitting at this point to actually lead. We see in the Torah, I don't know exactly which also was. One of the previous Torahs in different. I think it was in the first Chiluk. Not really sure where it is. And there the Rebbe speaks about sometimes people not not really being ready to lead. So sometimes people having the ability to lead, meaning he really is a leader of 1,000, but he's not actually leading 1,000 people. There are people that he has rulership over them, but it's more hidden. So if a person like that, who really is, let's say, could be appropriate to lead many people, but he goes out and he forces it, and he doesn't, and he pretends to be bigger than he really is, or much greater than he really is, and he's not really fitting as far as his mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim, then it could be that he could take a lot of people underneath his wing, and he's really misleading them. He doesn't have a proper Yiras Shamayim to lead them. So, it could be you'll find a big genius of some sort, and he really has a great neshama, but he hasn't really refined his limud Torah and his avodas Hashem properly in order to lead even one person. So first, what he would have to do is he would have to work on avodas Hashem a lot until he purifies himself, and then, since he does have a big neshama, then he'd be fitting to actually lead 1,000 people. But at this point, he isn't, and that would be called azus, because he's making himself out to be like a big tzaddik and a big person who's fitting to lead a lot of people, and really he's very far from it. So we basically spoke about two different types of people, and again, this is I'm just trying to bring it down to so we can understand and see practically how it happens that a person who's not fitting comes to rule over so many people according to the neshamas. One explanation is that he really has a small neshama, but he's a tough person, so he rules, he forces many people to listen to him, or causes or entices them to listen to him and to follow him, but really he's not fitting to ever lead such a large group. And the other type of person is a person who really would be fitting to lead such a large group, but isn't actually fitting because he's just not ready as far as his avodas Hashem is concerned. And there could be many other cases that, the Rebbe could be referring to a specific case here. But this is a simple understanding of two ways where people can come to have great azus, through azus to come to lead, and there could be false leaders without being fitted. So the Rebbe comes and asks, how is it possible for a person to recognize which one is a mefursam shel sheker, who's a false leader, and who's a true leader? So he explains. The way to recognize which mefursam is through boldness and inappropriate to lead is through binyan Yerushalayim, is through building Yerushalayim. Shu b'chinas halev, which is a b'chin of the heart. Through building Yerushalayim, which is building the heart, as we're going to see, through that a person is able to recognize who a mefursam shel sheker is and who a real mefursam is. And then obviously not to attach yourself to mefursam shel sheker, it's dangerous, it's not good. And yes, to attach yourself to the mefursam of kedusha, which is very good. Ki Yerushalayim b'chinas Yerushalayim. What does it mean, binyan Yerushalayim, building Yerushalayim? Yerushalayim is b'chinas Yerushalayim, complete fear, full fear. Haynu. Shleimus hayira hatali b'lev, k'mo she'amar b'sein zuchon levracha, d'avar masel lev nemar bo v'yaresa. So we said that binyan Yerushalayim, building Yerushalayim, is if a person builds Yerushalayim, so then he's able to recognize who a real mefursam is and who a not real mefursam is. And this building Yerushalayim is a b'chin of lev. Now the Rebbe explains how building Yerushalayim is a b'chin of lev. We're going to see is getting like yira, which inside the lev, that through that a person is able to recognize who the mefursam is and who a real mefursam is and who he really is, which ones are mefursam, which ones are not supposed to be mefursam. Ki Yerushalayim b'chinas Yerushalayim, because Yerushalayim is the inyan of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is a combination of these two words, fear and complete fear. Yerushalayim is Yerushalayim. Haynu, shleimus hayira hatali b'lev. Now, Yerushalayim means complete or perfect yira, and yira is dependent on the heart. A person has fear in the heart, fear of Hashem. K'mo she'amar b'sein zuchon levracha, as the Rabbi said in the Gemara Kedushin, Dovran Mosul Alev Nemabo Viresa. That when there is a mitzvah that is dependent on a person's heart, meaning that a person has to fear Hashem in order to do his mitzvah properly, then the pasuk says Viresa. And I think that it speaks about here in this Gemara Kedushin, it speaks about a standing up for an old person, and you could pretend sometimes that you don't see the old person and therefore you shouldn't stand. But since this type of pretending is something that's dependent on your heart and you have to be sincere about it, and and if you see an old person, don't just go like this and pretend you didn't see him and not stand up, but a person should stand up. I'm pretty sure that's the case that we're speaking about there, that you need Yiras Hashem in order to fulfill the mitzvahs, this mitzvah properly. And therefore the pasuk says, the Yiresa says by standing up for an old person. Ach yesh shalosh midos shem machriv Yerushalayim. Dainu leiv. Hainu shemafsidim hayira tov leiv. However, there are three character traits that destroy Yerushalayim, meaning that destroy the heart and destroy the fear that's in the heart. Because we said Yerushalayim is complete fear, which rests in the heart. When a person destroys Yerushalayim, he destroys this complete fear. He destroys his holy heart, and which is dependent on his heart. He destroys the fear which is dependent on his heart. And these shalosh midos, these three bad character traits are taivas mammon, taivas achila, and taivas mishka. It is taivas mammon, desire for money, desire for food, and desire for relations, for physical relations, for being with women. Ki shalosh midos elu hem balev, v'alken amafsida yiras balev. Why do these three midas destroy the fear inside of a person's heart? Since these three midas themselves rest in a person's heart. The desire for money rests in a person's heart, as we're going to see later on. So when a person has these three bad midas, since those midas rest in their heart, they, so to speak, take away or push away the yira. A person can't have yiras Hashem and bad midas at the same place. They just don't. They don't get along together. So a person has to destroy these three midas, or make sure he doesn't have these three midas, in order to have proper yiras Hashem. Because if a person has these three midas, then it destroys Yerushalayim, so to speak, which is the yiras Shamayim inside of his heart. We're going to explain what more about these three bad midas later in the next chapters, next year.